Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Hi, 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 everyone. Trying to get my guest on. Okay. Let's see. Lord, I worship you with all my heart. Hi, 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 everyone. Welcome. Trying to get my guest on. Hi, 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 everyone. Hi, hello, hello, hello. So let's try to get her online. I worship you. I worship you with all my heart. Lord, I worship you. All right, yeah, we're trying to get Temilola on. We'll see soon, and then we'll get right started as soon as we're able to get her on. So let's share it. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's another session of Let's Talk Take Stock. Get your friends, invite people. Okay, yeah, Temilola's joined the call. Yeah, thanks, Temilola. Let's invite Temilola on live. Let's share this. Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome. All right. So do we have Temilola on? Okay. The bliss of life, life activities. We're trying to get Temilola on back on. So let's see. Let's see how this goes. In the meantime, yeah, just share the news, get others on board.
Okay, I will.
Is Temilola now?
Yeah.
Hi, 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 Temilola. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think I probably take. Okay, good. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can. I can. I can. All right. The bliss of life. Okay, okay, okay. Let's we're going to hope that folks start to roll in. Um, Hopefully there aren't others, having any technical issues joining. But as always, we always like to just start to get started. Remind folks that we're having the session. So reminders. We're on. We're on. We're on. It's an exciting session. It's one that I've been looking forward to, and I'm looking forward to the conversations to get started. And so we will start to remind folks and give a few 1 or 2 minutes for more and more folks to join. All right. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm
We're
good.
both wearing white. Did you notice?
It did not come to me. I just looked at it like, oh wow, we're connecting colors. All right, awesome. Yeah, we must be in sync. Because funny, it crossed my mind. I don't know why it crossed my mind that there's a chance that you might be wearing white. I don't know why I thought that, but because I was trying to sort all the technical issues right now, I didn't even pay attention to the fact that you're wearing. Yay! Yeah, we are connected. Yeah, there's a story there. So we get more folks to join. No technical issues. We don't want technical issues. We want people to join this conversation and have a good time. in the conversation. So yeah, thanks for joining. Praise Arena, Radiance, Ori, Flame Space. Thanks for joining. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's another edition of Let's Talk Take Stock. And so I see that some people have come through. We're expecting more people to join in. Misia Day, thanks for joining. Let's share the word. Invite your friends. Tell them it's happening. We're talking take stock. We're talking intentional living. We're talking just the importance of just recognizing the moments of your life. So let's keep the word out there. We started. Tell your friends. Tell your families. Let them not be distracted. They should come this way. We want to have a conversation. So let's keep the message going. It started. It's live, and again, we will kick start the conversation like yesterday. We'll get started. I totally always believe in the intentionality of life, in the fact that everyone who needs to be here or hear this will hear this at some point. And so thank you for joining today. If you're out there and you're watching this live after the session, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I can assure you that it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful use of your time. And so if you're live right now, please invite your friends, get more people on. We need to see more people on the live today. Get people on. We do need to share this message as broad as possible. But we will get started right away. I was starting the session with the song from Dusi Oyeko that says, I cannot be less than what you've made me. And it totally resonates with me in terms of just the concept of taking stock, of being intentional with life, of being the person that you were designed to be, just because you recognize who that person is and how you are tracking towards being that person. And so if you're just joined again, please share the message. Let's get others on the line. We want to have real talk. We want to have real conversations around taking stock. And so, yes, it has started. And I like to just say a quick word of prayer as we get the session started. I should say thank you, Lord, for the opportunity for us to have this conversation. There are no mistakes with you. You're very intentional with life. We know that everyone who needs to hear this, whose light bulb needs to come up, who needs to start to reevaluate their lives differently, they will partake in this conversation one way or another in the name of Jesus. All the glory will be yours, and we will get the beauty in our lives as we start to connect with that person that you want us to be. In Jesus' name, amen. Peggy Mfa, welcome. Thanks for joining. Let's remind folks we have started. You don't want to miss any part of this conversation. Again, if you're watching this after the live, thanks for joining. And so I'll just start with just a quick introduction. What are we talking about here? This is the third edition of the Let's Talk Take Stock. And we've had different folks come through on this. And today we're going to be talking again on Let's Talk Take Stock. We're bringing another perspective, another real human being who's going to be talking about her learnings, her perspective, her insights from Let's Talk Take Stock. So today I'm hoping that you will get one nugget at least, between the stories that she'll be sharing, between my perspectives on it, between the questions that get asked online. We will get information that will transform our perspective to life generally. And so the name of the book is Take Stock of Who You Have Become on the Journey to Becoming. I published the book in October of last year, and it was sort of a byproduct of a light bulb moment I had a couple of years back, and how that has changed my life, changed my perspective to life, changed the way I think about impact and relevance in God's agenda. And I thought that, this is a message that needs to go out to as many people as possible. And so it's a book that, was reading, take stock of who you've become on the journey to becoming. Usually on these sessions, we talk about the book, I do a highlight of the book, and then we just dive into the real conversations of people who have read the book and are willing to share their perspectives on how the principles of the book resonate with them. Because often people already are on this journey. Some people already practice one thing or another with regards to those principles, but seeing them in one place and condensing them in the way that you can tell a story of just being intentional, for me, brings color to it. And that's why we bring folks online to share their stories with you. And I'm totally excited today to be joined by Dr. Temilola Akintunde. we have a history. Like, I first met him probably 30 plus years ago when we were in secondary school. That's what we call it in Nigeria. But yeah, some people call it high school, middle school, whatever. But secondary school was when we first met. And Temilola, fun fact, she's smart. She's smart, very smart. In fact, she finished as the best graduating student in my set. Yeah, so she is smart. But somehow we had kind of lost touch. Yeah, we follow ourselves, we're in similar groups and all of that. But somehow we came back and reconnected late last year, and she'll talk through it as she talks through her experiences. And I'm happy for her to be here because the comments she gives me sometimes, I was like, I like the person that I'm becoming. I'm like, okay, I do need to learn about this as well so that I can apply it. Cressy Cress, thanks for joining. Tolu Willie, thanks for joining. Anna Kodo, thanks for joining. If you're here, no matter how long you're here for, we're excited that you joined us, and we are looking to hear from, get your questions, hopefully you pick something for yourself. And so if we can just get very right into it, this book is in two parts. The first part talks about the dimensions you should take stock of, the whole being, your well-being along the lines of, your physical well-being, your intellectual well-being, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, in recognition of the fact that as human beings, you, the carrier of this great assignment to the world, have to be in the right frame and space for you to deliver on your assignment. And so that's the first thing, we talk about in the book. And then we go on to talk about things like, recognizing your assignment, recognizing who your target audience is, recognizing your destination, the instructions in your life, and then your opportunities and giftings. And then talking about recognizing your journey and the resources that you have around you, resources in terms of people, in terms of your credibility, in terms of your time and energy, and how you use that for the things that are aligned with your purpose, and your financial resources. And on the backside of that, we talk about just why it's important to take stock, how you should take stock, that intentionality, how you're able to catch the real moments that matter in your life and be able to take that and translate that into something important. And then we talk about just after you've taken stock, so what do you do with all of that? That's in the book. Today, as part of the session, I really like to spotlight a session of the book, just so that I talk to it very quickly and then we get into actual conversations. And so today I kept thinking, God, what would you have me talk about today? Which part of the book? I kind of had a sense of where I thought I wanted to talk about the book, but he kept steering me in another direction. So I guess it's a message for somebody who's on the call or who'll be watching this later. And this spotlight comes very quickly from chapter 3 of the book. For those who have the book, it's maybe page 114 of the book. It's around taking stock of your opportunities and giftings. What is in my hands? What is that thing that you have that you think is not very important? I feel like that's a message somebody needs today. Olayona Abiola, thanks for joining. Okpaya J, thanks for joining. And what I usually do is to just read through it in about maybe 5 minutes, just to reground us on some of the things that are in the text in which they have been written in the book. And then right after that, that's a conversation with Temilola. She's going to be sharing from her perspective. She'll just talk real talk. That's the goal of the session. But before we do that, let me just do the quick read of what I'm looking to read. And I want to read just, about 2 pages very quickly, and then we start to talk. And so it's about I start with the book right now. The parables of the talents in the Bible is often referred to when speaking on the diversity of talents that each person has and the expectations of returns from these talents. It's the story of a man who gives his goods to his servants while proceeding on a journey. He gave to one 5 talents, to another 2, and to the last one he gave only 1 talent. A key point is that these were distributed according to their abilities. While the story resonates with the fact that we are all unique in terms of our abilities, the insight that I received from the story as I was thinking about this chapter was that it is in fact a story of giftings and opportunities. This is because while the first part of the story speaks to what the servant had been given, the rest of the story is about the opportunities that were leveraged or missed by the servants to grow the talents that they had been given. Upon the master's return, the servants who had been given 5 and 2 talents respectively had leveraged the opportunities available to trade their talents. As a result, they yielded 100% 100% on their talents. However, the one who had received the single talent dug up a hole and hid the talent, preserving its value. He missed out on the opportunity to potentially grow its value. His true motivations may never be known, but one thing that is clear is that he missed out on his opportunities. He chose preservation instead of growth, no matter how little it would have been. He missed out on the immediate growth of his talent. He also missed out on the ultimate growth in his capacity, as he was stripped of the talent that he was given and thrown out. Meanwhile, based on the evidence of their proficiency in the little things, the Lord of the servants said to the profitable ones that they were going to be introduced to a larger spectrum. They were going to be made rulers of many things. The smaller opportunities that were used appropriately according to their abilities led to bigger stages. This is a lesson worth noting for anyone on the journey of becoming. Sometimes the keys to unlock the bigger stages that are required for the highest level of your assignments lie in the effective utilization of the opportunities presented in the initial stages and along the journey to the destination. The servant with the single talent probably thought, like many of us do when comparing ourselves to those around us who appear to be endowed with multiple abilities. He might have thought, if only I had the 2 talents or the 5 talents, I would have thought of tangible ways to trade with them. What can I achieve with this 1 talent? I'm better off keeping it intact. What he did not quite realize was that the assessment was not going to be based on absolute value, but on returns as a function of what had been given. Hence, the person who returned 5 additional talents with his original 5, and the person who returned 2 talents with his original 2 got the same reward. They did the same thing. They had fully utilized their talents to get 100%. This means that the person with the single talent, he just needed to make 1 more, just that 1 more, to be qualified as being profitable with the reward of expansion. He was punished for not trying at all. Same lines, which is the last paragraph, well, 2 paragraphs I'm going to read. Along the same line, if the servant with the 5 talents had gained 3 instead of the 5 that he gained, while he may have had an absolute value that would have been higher than his peers who had 2 talents originally, as his 3 would have been greater than 2, he still would have been judged as less profitable than the servant with the 2 talents. The key here, therefore, is that the expectation of return from the giver of the abilities is a function of the value that you have been given and not based on your relative value to others. So the critical question is, how well are you returning on the abilities that you have been given? So I'll stop there, because really the key highlight for me as I've been thinking about this and many others in recent times is just the fact that in life, there's people who are like, what can I do differently with what I have? Like, what do I have? But it's a reminder that no matter how small what you have is, that talent, that thing that sets you apart from the person from you, the opportunities that are placed in front of you to use those talents, the real answer is going to come in how well are you using what you have today? Because often, as with the quotes that I have in the book here, which is the last thing I was going to read, is that consistently seizing your aligned smaller opportunities is the rite of passage of growth into the next phases of bigger opportunities and impact. I'll read you one more time. Consistently seizing your aligned smaller opportunities is the rite of passage of growth into the next phase of bigger opportunities and impacts. What do you need to be consistent at today? What do you need to seize differently? Why are you hearing this information today? What is it going to quicken for you today that you need to just start to work on, improve yourself, change something, and then you start to see it unlock bigger things for you, bigger opportunities for you? That's a message for somebody today. I'm hoping that whether you're on the call or you listen to it later, that it really, in fact, becomes a light bulb for you and unlocks, the next stage for you. And so the point here is, don't leave value on the table. People say don't leave money on the table. You've got value. You have a message. You carry a message. Don't leave it on the table. Somebody needs it, and you need to deliver it to that person. With that, I'll stop talking so that we can listen to Temilola. We can start talking to Temilola now. So she's on the hot seat, and she's just going to. And the truth is, like I said to Temilola, is we're just having real talk. Our goal is not to wow you; it's to tell a real example of life changes, life transformations from just being intentional with life. What that means for you might be different, but it's a real example of the fact that you can do something with whatever you find. And it has to be your story. You have to own it. So with that, Temilola, I like to talk. I really do like to talk. So I just keep going. But can you just introduce yourself briefly and get us started on the conversation?
Well, hi everyone. My name is Temilola Akintunde. I am a physician practicing in Canada. I work as okay. Before being a physician, I'm married. I have two girls. I have amazing siblings, and I have a few friends. I think Fumi is one of them. But really, I'm here to share my personal experience with what I've gained, what my life has, what I have learned since I came in contact with this book, and have also been intentional about taking stock of where I've become on the journey to becoming. Yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
All right. All right, that's you in a nutshell. And to your point, before the physician part, there's the you, Temilola, and there's all the wonderful people and the giftings that you have around you. And so we hope that, as you start to expand on it, we can get to even know you better and how you're using this. And so in my mind, when I think about the questions that I have for Temilola to get us started, the question I said was, thinking of your journey of becoming, or just the personal stories that, you would consider. What would you consider some of the key highlights, whether it's your career, your personal legacy, your family? What are those things that you would look back on your journey to this point, and just as you have continued to journey on, and say, what are those key highlights that you'd like to spotlight so that we can understand you as you then go to talk about your stories a bit more?
Okay, so everything I've been through, I'll say, makes up a piece of the story of who I've become today. But the real thing that changed my life significantly is, I'll say, relocating to Canada, because that is what, like, there's a quote or there's a piece of the book that I wrote down. That is where I had major transformations that occurred to me emotionally as I took the various wilderness journeys of the life of an immigrant. So so a lot of the stories I'll tell today will be related to those changes that occurred while I was trying to navigate the system and settle down after relocating. Yeah. But yeah, I've had other major events like, being born, marriage, turning 40, having kids, yeah, so many other things. But that one significantly had a significant impact on my well-being, I would say.
Thanks for sharing. And for everyone's part, it's different. The anchor moment in one's life. One of the chapters of the book is on your journey, and it's being able to say, every one of us has a message, and our life is a message, and we carry a message. And sometimes the high points of the message are different from people. Like two, three people can be on the same similar journey, or similar, yeah. But the key points in each person's life is just different. Like the things that you look back on and said, this was like a bump. This was like a unique point in my journey. And I'm hoping that as folks listen to this, they're thinking about their own life and thinking about the person that you have become today, or that you have started to become over time. How well are you able to look at your life and mark those milestone markers of your life, those things? Because the challenge with living life without taking stock is that we're constantly chasing something. I was talking to somebody recently, and it was also along the lines of there was a very tough experience that happened to him somewhere along the line, and because of that, all of his decisions and life's choices started to stem from what happened to him in that state. It had affected him in a way that he almost didn't even realize the effect of that thing on his life. And so a very important part of taking stock is just being able to get to that point where you start to tell yourself, what are the real markers in this life's journey, and what are the stories that have shown up that impact my life and help impact other people. And so thanks for pointing that out, and I'm sure a lot of people are itching to hear about the immigration part, because it's the reality of a lot of us' story these days. And so we'll be curious to hear that. And so if you think about what made you feel like you needed to reflect, because remember, we connected like after a book reading, and you're like, for me, do you ask a couple of questions? And I said, well, the book is coming. I do coach, but I'll say, why don't you read the book? Just because I felt like the book was a seed. It was a message that God was sending to a lot of people. And I said, how about you read it and tell us, and let's talk about it on the backside. So I'm curious if you'd like to share with us, like, what was the thing that made you feel an urgent need to just reflect, take stock, or just do something along those lines?
Right. So I would say I didn't even realize that there was an urgent need to take stock, but I'll say God just pitied me and said, you know what? I'm not going to let this girl self-destruct on this path that she's taking. And so earlier that year, I had reached out to someone, a lady in the States called Carol McLeod. And I just said, because she has this podcast that I listen to, and she posts things regularly that I somehow come in contact with and read. And I like the kinds of things I was hearing and learning from her. So I'd reached out to her and said, do you coach? Or I can't even remember how I reached out to her. But anyway, I had become privy to those monthly or bi-monthly things that she had been releasing. And so on November 9th, one of the things she had released was related. Okay, no, I'll track back a bit. In 2013, I visited my sister in Fort McMurray in Canada, and I went with her to church. And so after signing up as a first timer, they had somehow connected me to an email group that received their monthly newsletters, and that was since 2013. But I always made sure I read it when it came through at the beginning of every month. So on the 1st of November last year, incidentally, after reading this thing since 2013, the message that was shared was, I'm just going to quote it. It was like, sorry, I need to quote it so that you understand the impact this had on me. And so, so one of the paragraphs in that newsletter was, it is natural for us to take stock of our conquests and achievements relative to the mandates, visions, and goals we set or received at the commencement of the season in order to know how we're faring. Such an exercise allows us to double up in strength, determination, and energy in completing the home run or the final stretch of that season. And so that was November 1, because they release it on the first day of every month. And just shortly before that, I think it had popped up on my timeline that Fumi was going to launch that book around that time. And then the week after, Carol McLeod sent hers. That was on November 9. So exactly about a week after. And what was the message? The first line in that weekly newsletter was, when was the last time that you truly took stock of your life? Are your days quickly passing by in a meaningless blur of busyness, restless sleep patterns, planning for the next meal, paying bills, and you're just merely existing from one mundane task to the next? But when was the last time you thought about your life deeply? So when I saw those two, I reached out to myself, for me, you know what? Everything is aligning. All the elements are aligning. And I think I have to read your book because it sounds like I'm needing to take stock at this stage of my life. So
Oh,
that
thank you for sharing that, Temilola. And I said to folks in the book, so in the introductory chapter of the book, I talked about the concept of just living life on autopilot, living life without noticing. Like, we just wake up the next day, the third day, and we just keep going. And then sometimes, just by divine providence, God just, like you said, God just pities us sometimes, and He forces you into that, hey, stop. Because if we don't stop now, it's going to be a problem. And for some people, it will be just that one big profound effect. It might be positive, it could be negative, it could be like one big thing. But for others, it's just going to be a string of messages coming together from different places, and they're all lining up to the same message at that time. And usually, some people unfortunately still miss that. Some people still miss it. And I think, to your point, a newsletter you signed up to 2013, so many years ago, lined up to the time when the coach told you that, and then you heard about this timeline. And I think there's credit to God making you stop and take stock of even the messages you were getting, because you could still have gotten it and missed it. And so that's for somebody out there. What messages are you getting about being intentional about your life? What are the things that are aligning for you? What are the light bulbs that are coming up? What are the things that all of a sudden you have an uneasiness or an urge to just find out about? Maybe that's a message for you to just stop and realize where you've been on, where you're at, who you have become relative to that. And so if we think about, just Temilola going on to double click on this story, as you started to read the book, or as you started to think through some of those principles, I would say, what was the most profound thing that resonated with you? Like, those aha moments, what were your most profound encounters with the book? I have a sense of what you might mention, but I'm like, okay, let's hear it from you.
Yeah, so I think the aha moment for me was that chapter on taking stock of one's well-being. And so you had broken it down into the physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, mental. But for me, I'll say I was an emotional mess. And the reason I'll say that is physically, yes, everything was fine. Spiritually, everything was fine. There was the schedule, wake up, read your Bible, Sundays, join the prayer group. All those things were still going on. I was showing up for all those things. But I would say emotionally, I was weak. And the reason for that weakness was because of some of the things. It was actually after taking stock that I realized that it was just some of the things I've been exposed to, especially during my training. So you're going through training with people, the white privilege, other forms of biases, and you hear some comments and you don't even know that you're holding on to those comments, or they're just taking a place in one area of your brain space or your memory, and it's just there. And over time, it's building up and building up and building up. And it just makes you ultimately become a shadow of yourself. So I'll say emotionally, I wasn't in a fantastic state of well-being. And so that part for me was an aha moment that, okay, now I know the name. In medicine, we'll say you name it so you can tame it. So now I know the name of what it is, and the taming process can start. So it was an aha moment for me. Okay. So
No,
yeah.
keep going, keep going, keep going. You don't
So
say Temilola, just keep going.
so in fact, I must just credit the people that were around me at that time. My husband, my siblings, my parents, because it must have been really stressful reading or hearing from me at that time, because I just became that person that something will happen at work and then I'll just message my siblings group and say something like, oh my goodness, racism is real. It's subtle, but it's still there. And it just came from all these little side comments. And you just think, your siblings will always be just loving. Your husband will always say, and I know one thing, my husband really couldn't relate. He probably was already taking stock or doing some other thing, but he really couldn't relate. I was just things like, oh my goodness, and this person said this, that person said this. And then I always had this, it was like I'd lost my mental filter. So my responses were not even nice. They were not even helping the situation. I just went from that person that will get a comment or an email, and I won't even ponder over it. I'll just respond. And sometimes the response will just be like a bomb or something, and set things off that eventually I'll regret or something like that. And so overall, I just, where I was emotionally, I didn't like it. And I just lacked the capacity to take decisions confidently. So, I want to respond to something, and then I'm calling to, and he's ringing. The poor guy too is at work, but he's ringing. You have to pick it. I think at that phase, he got to a point that, if Temilola is calling me, I need to pick it. He'll have to pick it. And I'll say, okay, somebody said this. I'm planning to respond this way. What do you think? Or I'll email my brother or my sisters. I'll say, okay, you guys have been here much longer. What do you think about how I constructed this sentence? I just became somebody that lacked confidence in our ability to express herself verbally or even, via written word. It was just not nice. I didn't like where it was. And I just felt God was like, hey, yeah, this girl, stop. Let's stop. Take stock.
Oh, I know. God is like that. Like, to your point, because you were kind of in a space with your spiritual life too. He was like, I'm going to help you physically, and I think that's one of the things as Christians that I feel like there's a pull for us in this season. Like, so many of us are good with the Christian. We're talking to God. We're doing that, but some of the answers to our prayers are in certain physical, intentional manifestation of the things that He wants us to do. Like, we can pray it away, but sometimes He needs you to take the dominion over, the mindset, and so that you can be that person that He's already put the capacity in you to do already. I started this call by saying Temilola is a very smart person. She's like, and Temilola is not just smart, because those people when we were in secondary school, that's very cool, very calm, very collected, and she's so when you hear her say this, I think it resonates really deep inside of me that whatever it is that affected her to that point where you start to second guess yourself. And there are many people like that out there today. She said something, said, name it so that you can tame it. I'm like, it reminds me of those Yoruba films I watch growing up, they'll tell you what's the name of that person, what's the name of that flag, what's the name, because when you name it, then you can address it, then you know what you're dealing with. And that is the core principle of taking stock. If you don't even realize that it's happening to you, then you can't even know what to do to it, to tackle it. And so you keep cheating yourself and you go into that continuous spiral of just continue to make bad decisions upon bad decisions, because overall it reinforces itself. Because to your point, you say you give a response that most likely it will be a bomb, and then you get a response back and you're like, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. And then before you know what's happening, it worsens that cycle. And thanks, Grandeur Dreams event. I see that you said you were asking yourself in the store what's going on around you, and on your way home you saw the light and you joined. This is what you needed to hear, and that is it. I'm always somebody who believes that there's one person needs to hear something. It might be that one sentence that you need to just set you up on that part of what do I need to do differently. This topic of the emotional, well-being was one that really resonated deep with me when I was writing the book, because I realized that we have become very good at saying, I went through this phase in my life and I came out of it well. But did you? Because if you, just because that phase finished and you did not break down in that phase, doesn't mean you came out of it fully. Because you may have carried a lot of things that you stored in your mental backpack, and those things start to show up in other places in life. And then, so you've not really healed, you just successfully completed a phase of that process. But the process probably won you because it gave you something to take along with you. And so I like that how you called it out and how, you were able to address it, and just recognize it so that you can deal with it. And so in my mind, the natural response to that is, so what have you been doing with that? What is the impact of just being intentional being for you since recognizing that?
Yeah. And so, number one, in April, when on my birthday, I was like, you know what, my mantra this year is going to be growth. And I've actually never given myself a mantra for my birthday. So that was one piece of intentional living. I'll say, the one decision I took that I'll say, yeah, went in line with my resolve to be intentional about living. Then, secondly, I'm really attentive. Now I pay attention to those early warning signs, like you referenced in the book. And when I start to see that, okay, there's some thoughts I'm replaying in my head over and over again, you know how they say that nerve cells that fire together wire together. And so you are thinking about certain things. Okay, you are exposed, there's an exposure, there's something that forms in your brain as a result of that exposure. And you're thinking about it over and over and over again. Okay, someone said something, or someone looked at you in a certain way, and then you're thinking about it that, okay, just what if he said this because he thinks I'm this, and then you're just thinking about it over and over again. So those nerve cells are firing together. Ultimately they wire together. It just becomes a subconscious and an unconscious thought process, and then you just hold on to it. So those types of things that I'd allowed to wire together and form those pathways in my brain that just made me become an emotional wreck, I've gotten rid of them, thank God, from taking stock. But I know the journey is far from being over, because the devil is still there. He's still going to throw all those things back in other ways. So it's just that intentional practice of recognizing that, okay, yeah, I'm starting to form a pathway for this thought process to take root in my brain, and it's wrong. I don't want to go back to where it was. Nope, I don't want to ever go back there. And so recognizing it and quickly terminating it before they become, friends that are going to wire together and just stick along that pathway, and I'm going to start being reinforced, getting reinforced in my mind, and then it will become another groundwork for emotional baggage to start to pile up again. So I'm really intentional. I don't allow those types of things to even take roots. I don't have any emotional bandwidth to deal with that again. So I'm not going there. So yes, I'm really intentional. And then I've realized I've rearranged my priority list. It was so off at that time. So now I know what my one best thing for the day is. Those things that raise my feel-good hormones, that make my endorphin levels go through the roof. And I make sure the day doesn't go by without me doing that one thing, because I have to end the day on a happy note so that, I started off. So I'm just really being intentional about things like that. And I'm really enjoying it.
No,
Yeah.
I I think it's really powerful, and there are a few things that you mentioned there. First off, you've given us some medical terms: nerve cells that wire together, fire together. I've learned something new today, people. But it's so true in that, and Dr. Yewande says it's so true. Awareness is half the battle, and and I hear you. Where can you get the book? It's available. I will. I want to give my thoughts on what Temilola just said, and then I'll provide some comments around where we can get the book. But the truth about it is that life is a continuous journey. Because I was just thinking about it. Why did God give me that topic around, take stock of who you've become on the journey of becoming? It's because taking stock is something you need to learn and grow the nerve around, because the battles you solve in this phase only prepares you for the next one. Like, just because you get it and you can now take stock and you just know how to arrange things doesn't mean all your problems are suddenly going to disappear. In fact, the things you learn on how to manage and recognize this helps you when you get to the next phase, because life is just that permanent journey of the next thing and the next thing until we get to that, when we say you close our eyes in death and you know that you're really done. And so that's why it's important to you to be able to say, yeah, I can see this starting off again. In this year since I wrote the book, I've had times that I've had to go read the book, and it was from a place of, did I talk about this? Because I was experiencing things that were beginning to challenge some things that I'd said. And so, to your point, my ability to be able to recognize that, okay, for me, your journey to this point has been a message. The process you're going through is part of the process. Embrace the process. You will continue to get better. You're going to get refined. And so it's important that we're able to just get used to growing the nerve of just recognizing those moments so that we can nip it in the bud early. Whether it's, emotional awareness, whether it's just your physical health, whether it's the context that's changing for you, the things that you could do when maybe you were in Nigeria with your health, and you can't do now that you're in another country, or the things you could do when you were 20 years old and now you're 40, you cannot do anymore. Just being in tune with yourself helps you make choices in a different kind of way. And so thanks for touching on that. Every time I've read from you, you're like, Fumi, I like the person I'm becoming. And it's just so heartwarming. I'm like, Fumi, you too, you need to I need to keep learning from people as well so that I get better at this, because it's not my book. At some point, I wrote it in the book that me and God had an agreement that clearly it's his book, not mine, because the way he's written most of it is been in a way that I've read it back myself, and I've wondered, like, okay, did I really write that? And so thanks, Grandeur Dreams Event, for asking. The book is available in any bookstore well, not any, at least for sure. I know it's in Roving Heights in Lagos. I'm not sure where you're at. It's in the booksellers in Ibadan. It's in Bookville World, Port Harcourt. It's available for delivery in Lagos if you order on my website, www.fumilolaasa.com. And there is a PDF copy now available as well on my website, www.fumilolaasa.com. And so if you're in the diaspora, it's also available on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon. It's available to you. Take stock of who you have become on the journey to becoming. Thanks for asking. And I see all the other comments, medical stuff. You can't help it. When you're a doctor, like you think like a doctor. And so, I'm hearing nerves that I've noted it as my favorite quote for today. Just recognizing that those nerves fire together. Imise Ade, I love how you're able to help us understand how emotions work through how the body works. Yeah, you get a doctor. What do you think is going to happen? So thanks, Temilola, for bringing the medical angle to it. And so if we continue along those lines, because we say that the whole point of taking stock is, as human beings, we're here for impact, we're here for purpose. And often it's because we've used those words a lot. Sometimes it's like really massive thing, like, okay, I need to be on this live, I need to be on that stage talking. But for some people, that your target audience may be those children that you're helping to shape their lives. And when people touch them and encounter them later, they know that this person was raised and nurtured in a way, or your co-workers or people that you just encounter. So in your mind, when you think about how taking stock catalyzes your purpose and your impact and just the person that you continue to become, is there anything else you'd like to add or just share with us from your personal experiences?
Yeah, just to add that at the minimum, taking stock should be done once a year at the minimum, maybe your birthday or something. But when you start to see the benefits of what taking stock can bring to your life, you will definitely get to that point where you'll do it more often. And so I just think for you to show up, if for your best self to show up, for you to just be happier and overall more, someone that is easier to live with, to be honest. You just have to keep checking in to make sure that you are on track. Because it's easy, life can get so busy, so it's so easy to just change or get transformed, and you will not even know it while the process is going on till you get to a point where you're like, how did I get here? Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, one thing I've learned in this since November, since reading this book, is that God will always show up for you when He sees that you are trying, when you are following Him. It says, I think it's in James 4:8, that just draw near to me and I'll draw near to you. So just keep, because I'm a person of faith, so I'm not sure some people on this call might not really, understand, but I really am unapologetic about my faith. And I know that that's what has saved me. And that's why God was like, okay, yes, I think you need to stop and rearrange things so that you become that person that I intended for you to be. Yeah, you're going off track. It's obvious. You're not even sure of yourself anymore. And so come back and let's do this. Let's reason together, like the Bible says. So just being intentional about how you are living so that you are, at the end of the day, when at the end of life, because nobody is going to be here forever, we're all on borrowed time. When you just look back, you're able to say, you know what, I like the life I live, and I'm thankful to God that I live that life. And you won't really just pass on to eternity with regrets or unfulfilled dreams, or even just being who you were made to be. Yeah, so it's really important, to be honest. It is.
No, so I think you've touched on a lot of, as soft spokenly as you have said it, there's so many things that you have touched on there that are very, very important. To your point, one of the things that people find out, even though probably later in life, is that on that bed, on that sick bed, you start to hear things about, oh, the things I could have done differently, the things I thought I would do. But the people who were reinforced by the journey that person was on, most times are not there to hear them say to themselves, I could have done things differently. And so we continue to run this cycle of, we see this person who is racing and racing, and we follow after them, and we keep doing that, and we keep doing that. And we never stop to just ask ourselves, what's in it for me? Who am I becoming? Who am I supposed to be? What makes me happy? This is a conversation I continue to have with myself, because even in trying to impact others, you can get into it almost to the point where you're like, okay, it's become another chore, as opposed to really loving it and carrying that message out. And so it's not something you learn and you just stop learning. You just keep doing it, and you start to realize what's important to you. Your ability to be able to prioritize things start to stem from you understanding what is really, really important. And so sometimes, every once in a while, you get into a bandwagon, you're like, no, why am I even on this bus? Get down. This is not where I'm going. This is not me. This is not who I should be. I'm not making this decision because it's not the best for me. It can be the best for 50 other people, but not me, because that does not align with where I'm going. One of the quotes I have in the book is that just being in the same direction as people doesn't mean we're going in the same destination. You need to chart your own course. But then how do you chart it if you cannot take the time from time to time to just have that conversation with yourself in the mirror, like in the mirror of your mind, and say, who am I becoming? Why is it all worth it? What's the point of it all? And then you start to make different choices, in life. You talked about being unapologetic about your faith. That's one of the things God worked on me with the book. Like, I kept writing the practical, I wanted something very practical. And He says, the essence of you is me. Like, do you know how many ideas I give to you all the time? But over time, I had this conversation with somebody recently where you could have something good, and because other people don't understand it, you start to undersell what you have just because it's not appreciated by others. And so the book is a faith-based practical guide. It is faith-based because it leverages the principles in the Bible, is grounded in those sort of principles. But those principles are the principles that are God is a perfect God. He sticks together a world that still works today. And so if He gives you principles, they will work regardless. But you just need to reference and understand that, yeah, it's from Him. And I don't owe anybody an explanation that I am a child of God. He teaches me in my day-to-day, and it shows up in my excellence at work. And so the more we stop to take Him and keep Him like a spiritual conversation on Sundays, and then we do everything else on Monday, the more He's willing to say, you know what, you're my person, I put you in life's marketplace, And so you have to be there, shine the light, and he will solve all the other things that would make you be that person that he really wants you to be. And so again, as we start to wrap this up, because what we used to have with the other sessions is that we'll have you for like 90 minutes, and I'll find that most people still have things to say, and I'm having to cut them short because we used to have we had like 3 or 4 people in the previous sessions that we had. So this was a one-on-one conversation so that we can just have you speak through the things that are top on your mind. And thanks for all those that have been commenting in the chat. True talk, God is always in the story, whether you want to believe it or not. And you have to calm down enough to even catch that he's writing the story. The stories that Temilola is telling today is going to resonate with somebody out there who's going through something, who's second guessing themselves, despite being somebody that's filled with so much potential, being able to do what they can do, but because of one thing or the other, one life situation or the other. So we are a story. And the more we can stop to recognize that story, the more we can be that person that will change somebody's life. Because I know somebody is going to be changed because they heard you speak about it today. So is there anything else you think you want to convince somebody who's still on the fence about taking stock of their life? Just the benefit of doing that. Any other thing on your mind?
Yeah, I would say that the benefits are that they're numerous, but at least overall, you will just like the new version of you when you start to take stock, because the ripple effect is felt in many dimensions of who you are, and the people around you will feel it. Yeah, because I can say from experience that even Duran says, Timola is growing, Timola has changed. And he's a very deep person. He won't really say things like that except he means it. So it makes me happy when I hear him say it. But even beyond him saying it, I can actually feel it that no, this is different. This feels different. This feels like who I really want to be. I'm enjoying going to work. I'm enjoying, because I'm a competency coach for resident doctors and medical students. So I'm enjoying talking to them. It's like I've been there, so I understand what you're going through. I can help you because I've passed through it. It's just the feeling is just it's different. I don't know. I like it. That's all I can say. I really like it.
So you say, you just say something that resonates with your head. And like there was something in the book on the chapter of your journey. I said your journey is sort of like the justification for your assignment. There's some people that sometimes and due to no fault of theirs, you explain something to them and you're going through something and maybe they make light of it because they just don't get it. It's not their fault. They just don't understand where you're at. But there's somebody else you're talking to, and as you're saying it, they're saying something else, and you're saying that, and you're like, are you in my mind? Were you there? That's because your story resonates with what that person is going through. And to your point, as having gone through that, I imagine how many other more people who are going to have their own version of an immigrant story. It might not be identical to yours, but being able to realize that I know what it feels like to start to feel a little less than who I am and who I can be just because of this, that, and that. And so being able to highlight and know your own story is super important to be able to connect with others who are on a relatable journey with you. And so I think that's something that is very, very, very important that you have touched on just by sharing the practical example of it. And I like that you say that even those around you recognize it. Your family can tell, they're there to support you when you're going through those things. But when you do change, they actually see that something has changed, and they're happy to have that person. I found my own story was more around feeling like, despite all the things I knew, I felt like, okay, I wasn't being that much of a person of influence like I want to be. And then as I started to just realize how much I already had inside of me, and as I started to share it, and I'll get feedback from folks, from other people, and then the confidence level just translated back even into the very place where I felt like I was being second guessed. And you just realize that you walk in some days and they're wondering, who do you think you are? I'm like, oh no, I know who I am, man. I've had a conversation with myself and I know who I am, and I'm working in the capacity of the person that I know that I am, and the person that I'm becoming. And so it just has this knock-on effect. As you start to unlock this, something else just shakes. You go into a messy room and you pull out the first string, pull out the first bed out of the way, and things start to create space. And you move things around. And without intending to do that, you probably decorate a room just because you decluttered. That's how taking stock is. And so I'm glad that you touched on it and how it's affecting other aspects of your life. I'm looking at the chat. I see, people confirming that, Grandeur Dreams event. The story was definitely for me. Thank you for sharing honestly. So Temilola, thank you for sharing your story so honestly. it is what somebody needs today. Ebele Bullet, thank you, said so true about being unapologetic about our faith. May we stay true to our faith in this Jackman land. Amen. 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 And Toli Woolley, this was very insightful. I learned a lot. Thank you. We do appreciate you, all being here. Some people have had to move on. Some people have come through. And fun fact, I said it the day Temilola came through my book reading. It wasn't even a live session. Like I was reading through. I saw her come through. And I know that at some point, she had to leave. But it was relatively short compared to the length of the event, but she had picked something that continued the conversation after. And so every time we have these lives, when I see anybody just come through, I'm like, yeah, somebody's going to pick something. Somebody's going to listen to this after. As long as we're there consistently sharing our stories, telling our stories, helping others, whoever needs to hear this will hear it. So thank you all for everyone who has picked up something. Again, I'll send reminders about the book. Please purchase the book. I always say that I feel like it's a message many people need. And it's not just students. It's not a certain cadre of people. We are all on one journey of becoming or the other. We are all created to be a part of God's picture puzzle to the world. We all have our spheres. Talk about him, Lola. God probably knows that in addition to helping her, that there's some people that he was bringing her path, that he needed her to go through this experience to be able to help them on their own journey, just like those she's talked about, at work already. We are here for a purpose, and our ability to really just connect and just stop and not be distracted and be carried away with all the busyness might be the one thing that you need to really situate yourself in that place that God wants you to be. Because as much as we like to think about ourselves, we're here for a bigger purpose. And you finding yourself would help you deliver on those other people that God is preparing you for a time like this to be able to help as well. Your immediate family, your loved ones, the world at large. And so I'll remind you, please read the book. If you can, get a copy of it. It's, again, available in Nigeria, Roving Eye Bookshop. It's available in Ibadan at the booksellers. It's available in Port Harcourt, Bookville World, PH. It's available online. You can buy it on my website. We will deliver within Lagos. You can buy the PDF copy as well in Lagos. Well, not in Lagos, anywhere. And you could pay Naira, and it's discounted. That's how much I feel about this. On Amazon, I can't help it. There are rates and all that, we have to do. And so, yes, it's also available on Amazon. You can buy it. But in Nigeria is super discounted for people just so that we can get this message. I'm trusting God that it will leave something in your life. And just having this conversation today would help you be more intentional about your life. To kind of wrap us up, one more thing I was going to announce is that, the book was published October last year. At the 1 year mark, which is in October thereabouts, we will be having a master class. It's a 7-week intensive immersive experience to help people kind of grow this muscle of being intentional about the different dimensions of our lives. Just because I feel like it's a passion, and there are people who need to get this message, who need to snap out of it. Like, when you're working in like zombie mode and something happens, you're like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? That's the feeling I feel like a lot of people need to get so that they can start to live life intentionally. It's being packaged right now. It's going to be, a world-class kind of curated experience. But guess what? It's going to be free. At least this first one is going to be free. And so more details will be coming in the coming months as to how folks can get there. It will be for a few people who would like to hear your story and be sure that you're going to be committed to the process over the 7 weeks of just, doing your own personal work and then weekends of meetings. But more information to come on that. We thank you for everyone who's come through. Any last words from you, Temilola, as we wrap up?
Yeah, just to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for spreading this word. And I just pray that a lot of people's lives will change as they start this practice too.
Thank you. And by the way, Temilola wrote, she gave me a recorded review earlier when she was talking with herself and her young daughters. Those ladies are also on the journey of taking stock, people. So we are spreading the message. The next generation is getting on board, and we hope that you all can get on board. So you can please follow me on Instagram at Fumi Asa, or at my brand page that I just started at Fumilola Asa. If you're wondering who I am, a transformational catalyst. I'm on a journey of sharing insights, helping you to make the step change of becoming a better version of yourself. And that finds expression in many ways. I have a blog, a personal blog on my website. I share, faith insights devotionals on my website. I have a podcast, Transformational Insights Demystified. And in my day-to-day job, I'm a corporate strategy and engineering professional of almost 2 decades. So yes, I work, and yet we do all of that because I feel that this message needs to get out there. God is looking for you in the marketplace of life to make a difference, and you do that by owning who you are and the message that you carry. So let's carry this message and go change the world. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening, Temilola. Thank you so very much for sharing, so candidly. God bless you. And we'll stay connected, people. All
Yeah.
right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.